appropriate backgrounds and things, make sure we're ready to go. We're live. We're a little early, and I hope everyone's caught on. We're not dealing with anything too controversial today. This is Early Childhood Subcommittee. We're going to be dealing with 4 concepts, but 7 bills because some of them are Senate bills and House bills. And we're being nice to the Senate, and we're doing their bills at the same time we're doing some of ours. And the first one we're going to deal with is the first one on the agenda. If I got it right, is Senate Bill 371, which is a bill we actually heard yesterday. No, I'm sorry. It's a bill that we heard a couple of days ago that has to do with setting reasonable limits for parents who want to get evaluations for their children. There are 2 conditions when they can. One is if they don't agree with it, they can ask for an outside evaluation. Now what they want to say too is if they have asked for an evaluation just in general, not contesting one, but they've asked for their child to be evaluated, it sets some time limits on how long it can be until the school system responds in several situations. And then if they don't, then they can say, well, you haven't responded for your evaluation. The parent can then ask for an outside evaluation in that case. Alistair, is that pretty accurate?
Yes, sir. Okay,
we can go over the timing if you'd like to. This bill is also Delegate Griffith's bill. The original bill came through, drafting was a little messy. And so Alistair and the drafter on the Senate side flipped a coin as to who would fix it up a little bit. And he won, and she had to fix it. So she sent it over with some good amendments, and now it's easier to read and more understandable. So all we have to do, if we'd like, is the first thing is to just move favorable on Senate Bill 371.
Move favorable.
To us. Okay, I got a second on that. All in favor of moving favorable on this, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Put your hand in the air, please. Thank you. Very good. Okay, and so that we'll report that out. Then the other bill is Mike Griffith's House Bill 716, which is the same bill. However, it doesn't have the amendments. So the first thing we have to do is adopt the Senate amendments onto this bill. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I got a motion and a second properly. And so all in favor of adopting the amendments to conform this to the Senate amendments, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Seeing none, okay, we've adopted the amendments. Now we need a motion on the bill.
Move favorable.
Got a favorable, and I'll consider the second favorable a second. Any discussion? All in favor of this bill as amended, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
There you go. Thanks, Delegate Wilkins. I appreciate the delayed response there. Okay, so that is that order of business. That bill is complete. The next bill we have is House Bill 771 or Senate Bill 548. Well, we can do the Senate bill first. This bill we did actually hear yesterday. This was about adding a handful, I think 5 questions to the analysis that's done every 2 years in middle school and high school, where children fill out a survey to find out about their experiences, their habits, and forward to the health department. What we want to add is some stuff about adverse childhood experiences. The bill originally had an addition of a lot of questions, which actually right now we get them pretty much for free from the CDC. Is that right, Alistair? And adding those 5 will not increase the price. So the amendments from the Senate that they put on it was to reduce the questions. I think the senator said 5 additional questions yesterday. And so all we have to do is, since it's come over with those amendments, if we're comfortable with that, we can move favorable on Senate Bill 548. Or questions if you have them.
Move favorable.
All right, there we go. I see a favorable. Do I have a proper second? So is there any further discussion on the bill? Yes. Okay. Delegate Shoemaker.
So refresh my memory all the way back to yesterday. What are we asking in these 5 additional questions? Just a brief synopsis. What are we?
It's interesting. Maybe Alistair, I don't know what the exact questions are. I did look at them a couple days ago. Going to have to do with adverse childhood experiences. Often these are the parent or something worse that happens to a student if they, experience some sort of sexual misconduct around them. So the questions will be questions about those. Michelle, you seem to have an idea. Why don't you, Delegate Guyton, why don't you weigh in on that? You can help me. One of the reasons I wanted to jump.
Thank you for reading that on my face. I actually don't know the specific questions that were involved in this bill, but I do know that many that are discussed or things like, are your parents divorced or living together? Do you have anyone in your family who is incarcerated? Those are some of the most common. I would say, do you have a family member who drinks too much or uses drugs? Those would be the sorts of questions we'd be looking at. But they're also using positive questions as well. So, do you feel like you have a loving parent? Do you have someone you can go to when you have problems? That sort of thing. So they're doing.
All right, so let me ask you this, Michelle. So what do they do with that information?
That was the question I asked in the briefing
Yeah, we did.
yesterday. And actually, the school is just a vehicle to gather it. It actually goes to the Department of Health for them to look at that. I don't believe they do anything to particular students. They're gathering information generally. The old survey had questions about smoking, other behaviors that were dangerous. Ask kids if they have done that. And they are anonymous, I believe.
We still have the smoking thing. I mean, some of these questions, I was just looking at a couple. They ask about, it covers a variety of topics. Some of them are about body weight index. Some of them are about your relationship with your parents, social and behavioral health, those kinds of things. Delegate Guyton said, and the purpose of this is just to get information about the state of children in the state to make policy decisions, not to, that they're anonymous and there's no tracking on who specifically is answering them.
Okay.
Okay, so I got a bunch of hands up here. I think I saw Delegate Lasante's hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who writes the questions?
The Center for Disease Control writes the questions. So these are nationally administered surveys. And states participate in particular
So
parts of
there's a menu of questions and the Department of Education just can pick and choose which questions they want to have in their survey.
That's right. And the CDC will pay for up to a certain number of questions. But if you ask more questions than that, the state has to pay. So the bill as it came in had us asking a whole plethora of additional questions, which would have cost some money. And now we're limiting it to just 5 more questions.
So as a state, do we set like policy guidelines or guardrails as to the types of questions that we ask from which type of topical areas? Because I think it's really important that we that we establish the type of, we're kind of leaving it to an administrative saying, to administrator to say, we want these kind of questions. Maybe from as policymakers, we maybe want X number of questions from this topical area and X number of questions from this topical area. Maybe I'm not saying that we need to micromanage which questions they are, but obviously to have a menu of questions from different subject matters would be more beneficial to us as policymakers, as opposed to heavy loaded on one side. So I'll say that to you. And maybe that's something to think about going forward. And secondly, I think it's really important.
Wait, may I respond to that first point really quickly, Delegate? Yeah, so as it currently exists, we don't put any guidelines on the questions we ask. Under this bill, we're asking specifically for questions related to adverse childhood experiences and positive childhood experiences. So we're still limiting we're still leaving it up largely to MSDE and MDH as to what exact questions they want to ask, but we're trying to get at those specific topics.
I think the thing that concerns me about that.
We have been doing this for quite some time.
Right. I understand that.
It's important that we've been doing this for quite some time. Okay.
I understand that, but
go ahead.
The cautionary tale here is, and I love this about intellects, and as an intellect, we ask questions, but what do we do with the information when we get it? And it's very important that we have a there afterwards, and we don't. And so and collecting data about adverse childhood activity or behaviors then denotes what do you do when you know that?
Well,
is there
to ask the health department that question. My guess is that it motivates programs like smoking cessation and other things that the health department offers to help. Like if they see that the data shows that these are particular problems, it would probably fund it.
Exactly. There's an annual report that currently goes out to you all and the governor on the results of the tobacco survey, and this would add into that report the results of these.
But I see like an adverse childhood behavior, like, do you feel safe at home? If I don't feel safe at home, I don't want a child to wait for a report to come out to the General Assembly a year later. You know what I mean? Once you ask the question, you're responsible for the answer, is what I'm trying to say. And so I think that somehow, some way, we can't usurp our responsibility when we pass legislation and we ask questions. We also have to be responsible for the answer. And being responsible for the answer is more than reporting and reading outcomes. So that's my thoughts.
Noted. Delegate Wilkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think Delegate Lasanti, I completely hear you on this. I think that what you're referring to really requires a school response. And that's where our work, our bipartisan work on trauma-informed schools really comes in, where a school is able to assess and obtain information about a child not feeling safe at home and being able to respond to that and being able to create an environment where there's different social services and opportunities to support that child. This, however, what we're talking about is more just the aggregate level for our overall jurisdictions and state to understand the experiences that students are having at home. So in terms of these questions, I've seen jurisdictions in the past try to make informed decisions. Like if Montgomery County, for example, we're seeing that a whole bunch of students who respond are saying they don't feel safe at home. We need to really look at what's going on, overall, and how can we implement policies around that. This, I just want to point out that these questions, we have numerous tools, right, under our tool belt when it comes to addressing this overall issue of what children in our state are experiencing. I think that this is more of an aggregate level tool to just help us inform and make decisions around what is taking place and what are the trends. Are we seeing less in terms of children having being affected by divorced parents and more children who are saying that they're using drugs, right? Then that's a different response that our state needs to have. But I think that what you're referring to, Delegate Lasanti, is why we need to do more work at the school level, because it's really the school level that has to respond to those sorts of things. And our jurisdictions do use this data to help provide information, but without us as a state doing the work to provide our schools with the resources around behavioral health, around social workers, school counselors, that's where I think a lot of the response is lacking. We have more work to do around.
So you're telling me, Delegate, that they have access, at the school level, they have access to this data that's taken. What I'm saying is that jurisdictions can use this information to help tailor their policies. What I'm saying is we all see I'm looking at the data. That's my point. That's my point. They don't have the
Hold on, let her finish.
Delegate, if I can finish. I have the floor from the chair currently. If I can finish my sentence, please.
I was just asking.
What I'm saying is that I'm looking at the information online from the governor's office right now. Jurisdictions can get a better sense of what is going on with their students. And I've seen Montgomery County leaders mention this ACES program to say, hey, this is what's going on in school and what's happening, and to help that to inform. So
I think it's important to note that this is.
Yeah.
And thank you, Delegate Wilkins. And hold on a second. I think it's important to note this is aggregate data. We're not listing it with students here. This is not longitudinal study or anything like that. This is just to get a broad picture from the CDC about what's going on. As I said before, I think it will help drive general policy about what sorts of programs and, what sort of like radio ads and things like that we do, what sort of promotion needs to be done in the community to help kids. Delegate Santiago, did you have one more follow-up before I move on to Delegate Branch?
Well, no, I was just, and I wasn't being argument. I think Delegate Wilkins and I were discussing pros and cons here, and I was just clarifying that the data being collected it does not. The individual school does not have access to this data. It goes to a higher level, to the school system, and that was just my point. I understand the need to have it at the higher level. My concern is the individual student in which the the particular problem is identified, that we circle back around so that the individual school can meet the needs or identify and help the student with whatever problem has been identified. That was
And I think that
Thank you.
schools
and we're
are
talking about two different
charged.
things.
Right, I think that's outside of what this survey is about. I think schools are charged with having help.
But it brings up the issue, and
Sure.
I think when we talk about policy, we have to talk about it in the micro level as well as the macro level, and that's the point I was making. So thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Branch.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask one question, and that was this information. Aren't the children's names, isn't it done anonymously where the children's names are not attached to the data? So we're just collecting the data at this point. We're not really it's not attaching it to a family or a particular child.
That's correct, Delegate.
Okay. Thank you.
Delegate Ebersole, you're muted.
I'm muted, right? I was yelling something at somebody. Because I wanted Tina Dove, there she is too. So I still see some hands up. Delegate Guyton, I saw your hand go up and come down and go up and come down. Are you okay?
Thank you. I am okay. I was just thinking of clarifying something. That I do want to point out that this is not for elementary school students. So generally this behavioral, so that changes maybe the conversation a little. We don't want to have anyone having adverse effects, but this is for older students and we're not talking about 7-year-olds at school at the time. So I understand the urgency.
It's administered every 2 years in middle
Right.
school and in high school, I
Right.
think, isn't it?
And I was just
Yeah.
going to point out some programs
And,
that I did.
and that's
that had
and that's
come from
historic.
this.
We've been doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's fine. It was in the midst of the conversation. It's good.
So I still got 2 hands up. I don't know if they're old hands or new hands. Delegate Wilkins, I still see yours. And
Yes,
Delegate Asante, I still see yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just do still want to make an overall point
Let's
and
hang on.
comment that I think it is the will of this subcommittee and committee that we have tools and resources available for our schools to be able to address these problems, but we have not necessarily provided the mental health support and the school counselors. Remember, our schools are sharing like one counselor. So I just want to remind us as a general point that although we would like the schools to be able to address these issues that are coming up, we as a body have not yet done the work for our schools to have the resources to do that. I support this bill and I support it moving forward favorably.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a motion on the bill because we don't have to do any amendments to the Senate bill. Do I have a second? I see Delegate Branch trying to unmute. I
Second.
think that's a second she's working toward there. I'm going to take that as a second. Is there any further discussion on the bill at this point? All right, then we have a favorable motion. All in favor of the favorable signify by saying aye or raising your hand. It's probably easy if you just put your hand up. Yeah, and so we've got everybody against. Delegate Shoemaker, are you voting against? I didn't see. Okay, so we have 1 against. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and 1 against and 1 absent. Okay, so at the same time then, in a similar fashion, House Bill 771, which is Delegate Queen's bill, needed the amendment because its fiscal note was far too large the way she wrote it. We have the amendment from the Senate. We want to adopt that amendment and then go ahead and send it over to the Senate. So I need two actions on this one. If we approve 548, we should do the same here. So I need a motion on the amendment and then a second. Does anyone want to move the amendment for me? I got a motion.
Move
I
favorable.
got
Second.
There we go. If there's any discussion on the amendment, it really just reduced the number. All in favor of the amendment?
I think
Yes,
Delegate
Haven, you have a
Shoemaker has a
question?
question.
Delegate Shoemaker?
You're muted, Delegate.
We're a little, our internet in the House building's a little
Sorry.
sketchy today, so we're doing.
So, yeah, which bill is this now? What have we moved on to?
It's the
House
same
bill
bill, but the House
crossfire.
version.
We're on the same bill.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, all right, I'm
House
sorry.
Bill 771 is the same bill as House Bill 548. They amended theirs to make it acceptable fiscally. 771 was not amended yet. And so we're just adding the Senate amendment and sending it over to the Senate.
Okay.
I'm going to switch over here. So all in favor of the amendment, first of all, say aye, raise your hand. Let's do raise hands. We're all kind of choppy here. All right, I got that. All right, so the amendment is added. Do I have a motion on the bill as amended on House Bill 771? Now the exact stature as Senate Bill 548, which we passed a moment ago.
Move favorable.
Favorable, I got a second somewhere. Don't be shy. All right,
Second.
we're gonna assume it's out there. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor as the bill of House Bill 771 is amended.
Comment, right?
Yep, discussion, point of discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to, and I just really want to emphasize what Delegate Wilkins said. Because I do think it's really important that we don't lose in this bill. I do support the collection of data, but I also support the need to circle back around and fund the support services that are complementary to what we find in this data. Because without making those connections, collecting data is just a paper tiger. We just know, we find out that there's problems, but if we don't back up if we don't provide the services to address the problems that we've identified, we haven't really provided the services for the children that are in need. And I think that is so critical. And so
I think we all agree that this is an
Need to go on
important
the record
consideration for
saying
this, for bills that'll come to this committee going forward, especially with young students, that we
Absolutely.
make sure that that awareness of their trauma and adverse childhood experiences, all those sorts of things are really, I think.
Reports are great,
huge-
but
a huge advocate
it doesn't
for
help a
this.
kid in need.
No, okay. So, okay,
Thank
we're still on the bill, House Bill 771. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of House Bill 771 as amended, raise your hand, please. Let's do the raising hands because we're chopping up a little bit. And that's 5, and against. And I think Delegate Shoemaker's still against, as he consistently, well done. And so that passes 5-1 out of the committee. Okay, our next bill is a bill that we've seen before, and we discussed at length, and it's going to be Senate Bill 432 or House Bill 518, which is the bill that requires the licensees to offer their books to libraries in a timely fashion and with regularity. The bill needed some amendments from the Senate. The Senate has sent theirs over. No, we need to add amendment. Hold on, let me get this right. First thing they did is they amended our library bill, House Bill 518. Let's do that one first. And the only thing they did was they amended the effective date. Amazon said, yeah, they could live with it, but they have a lot of licenses out there, and updating them so that they'll be ready to go is going to be hard. I don't know if they're really dragging their feet or what they're pulling on us there, but it's just 6 months. And if we can ensure their cooperation and not have to, go to court with them or anything like this because they don't think it's fair, we thought 6 months is fine. So the Senate has sent it over with the only amendment being that the effective date would be January 1, 2022, just 6 months longer. And I think that that's reasonable. And I'd like to know if we can have a motion to concur with their amendments.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second? Don't be shy. Come on. Thank you.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of concurring with the Senate amendment to extend the deadline when this will be effective, please raise your hand. Let's do raise hands here because that way we're all, like I said, we're chopping up a bit. And that's unanimous. All right. So the same thing as Senate Bill 432 is the same bill. It has come over, but it needs all of the amendments that we have put on it. I'll remind you briefly what they are. One was we added in language that would include audible books, audiobooks. We changed one word from shall to may, which meant that the licensees wouldn't have to put big restrictions on, but it said they could as to the number that they licensed and that kind of stuff. It just made the language actually more permissive in our direction. And then, of course, we have to amend on the effective date as well when we send it back to them so that it matches. So with all those amendments, it will match the bill we just concurred with. So I would like to entertain a motion on those amendments to the Senate Bill 432.
Move favorable.
Got a favorable? Do I have a second? Properly, I see, I'm going to take Lasante's nod as my second there. So it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, so we're moving the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, make it to align it with House Bill 518 now. Raise your hands, please. Great. Okay, and on the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
Got a favorable?
Motion favorable.
I have a second. Okay, all in favor of the Senate Bill 432, a favorable report, sending it back as amended, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand, please.
Aye.
There we go. Okay. Last one. Senate Bill 436. I didn't write down what it is. Alistair, what is Senate Bill 436?
This is the cross file for Delegate Kelly's bill.
Okay, yes, thank you. Delegate Kelly's bill is a bill we saw last year. For those of you who were on the subcommittee last year, we've seen it again this year. This is the one that changes some of the initial requirements for somebody who's working on being certified as a family, as a child care provider, but hasn't completed all the coursework. They could hire them for an interim period of time. We sent that bill over clean with no amendments. They've sent it back. They've sent the Senate version clean to us with no amendments. And so this is one that we're never going to see again because they should pass
Yeah.
to the governor, and we should pass this one to the governor as a courtesy to the Senate sponsor, who is Senator King. I would entertain discussion or a favorable motion on this bill.
Move favorable.
Got a favorable? Do I have a second? I have a second.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of Senate Bill 436 on childcare, raise your hands, please. All right, we did a lot there. We're done. Thank you all very much. You'll hear all these again in voting today. Thank you all for being flexible and coming in.
What time are we voting? What time are we voting today?
4:15? No, that's when it was going to be.
30 minutes after we get done the bill hearings today.
Yeah, it'll have to be, both parties have a caucus meeting, 4:15, I think.
We have a revolving schedule today, so I'm.
Yes, we do. Just keep your eyes open for voting, I would say.
We
But-
just got an email
We'll be
about
there.
that. We just
All
got an
right.
email about that.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm busy being a committee chair here, you know.
I got you.
Read my emails.
Yeah, I'm trying to help you out here.
Thanks.
Thank
Are
you,
you,
thank you,
30
Delegate
minutes
Shoemaker.
following
I
the bill
appreciate it.
hearing.
are you
I'm sorry.
self-appointing as vice chair there of this subcommittee? There's you. All right. Thank you all. Thanks to the advocates for showing up. Sorry, there was a little confusion.